Welcome to the Pitchwerks podcast. I'm Scot MacTaggart. Over the last 20 years, I've been a sales rep, a marketer, a manager, an executive, a consultant, and an advisor. This show is designed to give you access to my list of contacts so that you can learn more about how to present your ideas at work and succeed in your career.
Startups and salespeople, marketers and managers from the Epicast Network in Pittsburgh. It's the Pitchwerks podcast.
So I think storytelling is the primary vehicle that you can create a connection with your audience and make them care, because all selling is at an emotional level.
Yes. Hey everybody, it's Scott. It's Wednesday. It's the Pitchwerks podcast, and you knew that already actually because you downloaded this file on purpose. This week we're talking to Greg Coticchia, director of Blast Furnace, the program with a really cool name over at the University of Pittsburgh. I'll give you a hint. It has to do with creating your own business and entrepreneurial mindsets and kinds of things that we deal with around here. We're going to spend quite a bit of time on pitching, I assure you that. This is an expert. But you know what I'm going to ask you for? The numbers have been stuck in the same place for a little while now. I would love some new, fresh reviews. Help other people find this show. Just go into iTunes and give us 1 star and say, look, I don't know why I punish myself with this show, but I do, and I listen to it, and this is what I think. Or 5 stars. This is the highlight of my week, such as it is. Anyway, either one is fine with me. It does, though, help other people to figure out which shows are good for them, and I really do hope this show is good for as many people as possible. So whatever feedback you can provide is definitely appreciated. Greg Coticchia is in here. Greg had his own companies, raised funds, ran those companies, had billion-dollar exits. He is the real friggin' deal, and now he's over at the university. He does a little bit of teaching. He runs this program called Blast Furnace. Really interesting insight into the right way to pitch. I'm really glad he came in. Let's talk to him. All right, Greg Coticchia, welcome to the Pitchwerks podcast. Thanks so much for coming in, man.
It is great to be here, Scott. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Tell us about Blast Furnace.
Well, the Blast Furnace started not that long ago, which is really a great story. I as a serial entrepreneur, I wondered every day that I went to work at the University of Pittsburgh, like exactly why I was going to work there. Yeah. Because I certainly didn't fit into a 230-plus-year-old organization.
You just became the establishment, yeah.
10,000 people, how many students, slow, bureaucratic was not exactly what I was thinking about for the second half of my career.
Were you the move fast and break stuff guy?
Absolutely. So, as a guy that was in his first startup in 1985 and right before I did this for 1 year, Scott. That was the original thing.
That was your contract?
Yeah, the contract was 1 year. They said, and I thought, hey, this would be fun, for 1 year, you can help out, do some things like that. And here I am in year 7, which is kind of wild. I didn't expect it. But to answer your question, it was really the brainchild of Dr. Mark Melandro, who I'd like to think that myself and other people contributed to it. It was where we noticed at the University of Pittsburgh that there was a gap. We had some wonderful services for students. We have a lot more today. But we did pitch contests and we did startup education things. But, it was kind of like, you put a gold star on the kid's forehead and said, go get them, Tiger. And then they'd go apply to local places like Alpha Lab Gear, IBM Foundry. Well, they couldn't even compete. They were excited, and there was this gap because we didn't prepare them. Yeah. We didn't actually educate them on product market fit, on business models, and how what are you going to do for your go-to-market strategy, and what does your team have to look like, and what about your legal formation? All those things that now, because of Blast Furnace, we are giving them the opportunity to learn.
Silicon Valley and places like it are talent engines. They're talent magnets. They don't care if you fail. And I would say pre-Blast Furnace, pre-Alpha Lab Gear, failure was a 4-letter word in Pittsburgh.
Oh, trust me.
Yeah. And now you're trying to make it easier for people so they don't have to fly to the coast. They don't have to go to that talent engine. They don't have to sacrifice their life as much.
Yes.
I mean, I know you're not the person who wants to put themselves up on the pedestal, but I do need everyone to understand, like, we need people to say, like, I've already been on the other side of the wall, and this is what I saw when I was over there.
Yeah, and that's so true. And the pleasure I get out of Blast Furnace is giving back.
Yeah.
I've had I've had great exits, and I've had wonderful learning experiences, and,
right.
and everything in between. And
don't let him fool you, folks. That twinkle was in his eye when he said wonderful learning experiences. What he meant was, I took a beating and learned to smile about it.
Yeah. And you get kicked into shorts, and I think, having been, as my mother said, professionally promiscuous.
Yes.
There's only one thing worse than a true serial entrepreneur, and that's an entrepreneur who's done it once and been successful, because they know everything and they're willing to tell you how they know everything, and they've only seen one movie though. Right. And the unfortunate part of that is they've not learned a lot of the humiliating, humbling lessons that have to come along with failure and testing your assumptions and really thinking through some of the tough problems that there are.
And this is one of the things that I think I hated about the local environment. See, I lost a bunch of friends that had to leave town in order to find their success.
Yeah.
I've been lucky enough to have a couple of them on the show since, and that's about as good as it gets from here, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like once they're gone, it's tough to pull somebody out of the roots that they set in California or in DC or wherever they went. We were not afforded the same opportunity that maybe you're building for some of these younger people that are coming in, these later cohorts and whatnot. But we would be judged through the lens of the EIR's past success or the Angels' past success. So, without naming names, because the people are still in circulation here, the names have been changed to keep me out of trouble. Yeah. I remember one meeting in particular where someone told us about how they had been in the technology business, and we're sitting there going, okay, very interested to hear what comes next. And then they start talking about a period which was 20 years earlier in hardware instead of software, in B2C instead of B2B. And I've always had that thing where I think I know when to get up on my back legs and fight. And I said, but what does that have to do with our proposal? And I'm almost certain that that's where everything just became like, and we'll never work with you. Just the fact that I pointed out that their pattern wasn't good enough for every business.
Absolutely.
The cookie cutter doesn't fit.
It doesn't. And well, look, and I'm sure this is in every community, not just Pittsburgh.
Right.
There are phony entrepreneurs.
It's fashionable now.
It is very much. I think as you and I talked when we first met, there are a number of folks out there that just want to tag themselves as entrepreneurs. There are people who have worked their whole lives at Westinghouse or BNY Mellon, and all of a sudden they find themselves looking for consulting work, and they advertise themselves as entrepreneurs, or people that have run up and going businesses that are making $50 million as franchises, running pizza or retail shops, and they're all of a sudden they're entrepreneurs. You have to fight and claw to write those paychecks and live off of ramen profits, as they call it. And I remember my first startup, American Robot, a company that is long forgotten here in the city of Pittsburgh, and it was the fourth largest robotics company in the world at the time. Had raised $40 or $50 million from Venrock, Rockwell Venture Capital's arm, hard to believe. But what was really crazy about American Robot was that you had to go on Fridays. We got live checks, and people would jump into their cars at noon and run, and drive to the bank to make sure to see if it was going to cash. Oh, wow. And they'd sit there in line, and the teller would say, well, wait a minute, it hasn't cleared yet. And so, you had all these American Robot people out there going, oh, am I going to get paid this week or not?
They're coming. Greg called ahead to tell us to get ready for the onslaught. They had riot shields waiting at the front door.
But it was fun, you know.
Yeah.
You were building robots. I was actually my first job as a product manager. I ran the machine vision product. We had $5 million in venture capital from BMW Venture Capital, which BMW has.
Right, yeah.
Actually gave us money to build a machine vision product.
That's really cool.
It was wild, you know. And really, it's about that early risk. I mean, can you know, I've been in several businesses where we took a year and just, you know, lived off of our own money or no money at all. And, you know, not everybody can or wants to do that. And I actually think there's more people that don't want to than can't, right?
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, so if you want to ride the wave, it is not about, this is not necessarily a rock star fun trip or a lot of adulation.
No.
It's hard. I have a good friend of mine who I actually worked with and worked for, Larry Schaup, local entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And he said, you know, being an entrepreneur is like putting your head in a vice and turning it slowly each day. And, you know, getting back to Blast Furnace, it's very gratifying because we went in April 2015. And we started our first cohort, and we didn't know if anyone would show up. You know, April is the end of the year, as you know, as a Pitt graduate. Would anyone stick around for the summer? Can you imagine telling your parents, hey, Mom, Dad, I'm not going to take the internship at DuPont this summer that's going to help pay for the books and all the other stuff like that. I'm going to stay at this new program called the Blast Furnace here at Pitt. And
they got a cool logo, and Greg's nice.
Right. He seems like a good guy. And, you know, I'm going to start my own business this summer. And, I don't get paid for it, so I'm going to need some cash.
Yeah.
And, you know, it only goes for, you know, 8 or 10 weeks, and they get this demo day at the end of it. It sounds like fun, Mom, Dad, and you know, click.
Now, what we try to do here is essentially talk about how people present a persuasive argument, right? How is it that you tell people what you're working on and bring them into your worldview, right? I'm dying to get inside your head and find out what tips and tricks and sort of methodologies you've developed. How much have you raised? 100 million, you said?
Close to $100 million.
Yeah.
It's been interesting because you have to really think through, like, what is it that I did or do, what worked or didn't work. So you have to really hold the mirror up in front of yourself and say, you know, okay, well, did this work, that work, what was consistent? And then the other thing I did is I looked outward and said, okay, maybe what I did was either lucky or good at the time, and there's better ways of doing it now.
It's like a lawyer being glad they got the right judge.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. So, you know, I think a few things in terms of pitching are really, really, really important. But at the top of the list that I always emphasize is storytelling.
I love this.
You have to tell a story. You have to make it, bring me in, because it is not just, people are wired to hear stories.
Yes.
They actually remember, and you are differentiated by stories. Mm-hmm. And so the less you can stand up and talk about, you know, here's a situation, here's a problem, here's a solution, here's how it works, I want the money.
And now I will press the button.
Right. You know, or, you know, and this is the same thing in sales cycle when you're actually out there doing the business. You know, I don't want to show up and throw up. I don't want to do the death by demo.
That's the worst thing you can do.
Absolutely. I just want to show you, I'm going to tell you how this has impacted my life and why I actually created this. You know, one of the great things about these students that we work with, and even the faculty that at the University of Pittsburgh, is, you know, they all have this hero's journey. They all started with some reason that they are involved in this problem, or they experience firsthand what the issue is that they are trying to solve. So they can all talk about it on a very personal level. People love that.
Why do you care about this enough to work on it is a really important question if I'm thinking about giving you the money that I set aside for investment.
Right. I found this problem. You know, one of the businesses that I was in not too long ago was called E-Billing Hub.
Okay.
And founded by Gabby Asturez and Danny Garcia, myself, and a couple other folks. And we were trying to solve electronic billing. And I love love the story because Gabby at the time was working for a local law firm, Dickey McCamey. The guy that was the CFO was in charge of collections at the time. And they sat down with each other in their law firm saying, wow, all this electronic billing stuff is really a problem. And isn't there a way that we can automate this and simplify it and do all stuff like that? And they lived the problem in the firm.
Yep.
Right? They walked in the shoes of the problem.
And you can't ask them a question that they can't answer because they're telling you, this is what I thought and did on Thursday.
Correct.
It's not a weird academic sort of like, well, we sketched a model persona that we might, be able to walk through in our memory palace.
Right.
Like, no, you asked me the question the same day that I actually had to solve the problem. That's super useful.
She wrote that software, the first version of it, at that firm, and then we spun it out from that firm and modified. But we could tell 1,000 stories to people who were billing managers, CFOs, VPs of finance, IT people, because we knew what they were living with the problem. And we wouldn't talk about, hey, with this feature, you can do this button. And also, we'd say, hey, I bet you, do you have 59 logins that you have to deal with? Yeah. Do you deal with this one and that one and that one? Yes. A typical day, it looks like this. You get a rejection on that like that. Yeah. A lot of people have those same issues. And
Let me push you a little bit further, though.
Yeah.
I think a story also helps you to merge your own personal values and story into the problem that you're solving. You can then, people talk about this sort of like, brand integration when it's a company, but when it's a person, when you are the person up there explaining, whether it's to pitch, and get fundraising, or it's to get a business to buy your product, saying something as simple as, here's what I like about it, right, merges you into the story now. And there's this, how many words is that? Like 6 words. No effort on my part whatsoever, but I just kind of said like, hey, take a look at this. But if you can just say like, here's some value that I identified and I'd like to communicate it to you, now you're part of the story as well.
Absolutely.
And the whole thing goes together. It makes sense together.
So I think storytelling is the primary vehicle that you can create a connection with your audience and make them care, because all selling is at an emotional level.
Yes.
I teach business to business marketing also at the MBA level at Pitt, and I will tell you that people tend to think of this world, B2C is all emotions and transactions. You go buy your cereal, and B2B is all rational, logical.
Yeah.
And that is just total crap, right?
Oh, no.
You are as emotional person when you go to work in a day, and you have a relationship with that salesperson or whoever it is, and you have an attachment to the positioning of that company and that product and that salesperson,
yes,
right? And so you make decisions emotionally, and storytelling taps into that. The physiological reasons for that have been documented ad nauseum. So start out with a story. Tell a story, and create that story around either your problem or how you arrived at the problem and what you wanted to do and how you're solving it, and get your audience to care.
Now let me whine at you.
Yes.
Stories don't come in PowerPoint form.
They don't. I hate them. And what's great is I show, when I teach storytelling to the students, I show a picture of a guy named Bill Gates. You may have heard of him, Microsoft. And he has his Windows slide deck behind him, and there is death by bullets,
yeah,
right? All behind him and everything like that. And then next to that is a slide of a guy that you may have heard of also, Steve Jobs. Mm-hmm. And there's nothing behind him. It's just like this blank screen. And I always say, so what are you focusing on?
Yeah.
You're focusing on Steve here. You're focusing on the slides there.
Yep.
And why do you remember Steve Jobs presenting? Because you looked at him. You listened to him. He told you a story. And even if he did put up a picture, it was maybe a picture of the product or one or two words.
But it was art.
Beautiful.
It was art.
Beautiful.
And that was the part of the storytelling.
Absolutely.
The art wove into it.
Right.
And, when you compare those two men, right, you're saying there is a person who understands sort of the central pull of your chest towards a particular product, and then there is a certain person who invented Excel, right?
We know that Cinderella was hated by her evil stepmother. You've got the setup, the context, right? We have the buildup of, she wants to get out of there and she wants to go to the ball and the fairy godmother, and it builds up, and we have this Freitag's, ever hear Freitag's model, storytelling model? Yep. Right? And so it has that arc of a storytelling, and everybody knows it. You don't have to study Freitag to know it. We all know.
You kind of know it.
But you know it because at the end, then what happens? Well, then the prince gets together with her, and the slipper fits, and everything like that. So it's kind of this, startup context, build up issue, resolution. Hey, it's just like problem solutions. Imagine that, just like you're supposed to do a great pitch.
It is, but they tell you to send a deck. I'm literally working with 3 different companies right now that are trying to get the word out to investors and to potential clients and whatnot. And everyone says, send me your deck. And first of all, saying deck doesn't make you cool. Let's start there.
Thank you.
But secondly, I definitely don't believe that you should be in a different room when someone reads the deck for the first time, but it seems to be the common way things are done anymore. And I hate it.
I don't get it. I hate it too. Let me tell you the story. I started a company that was spun out of the University of Alabama at Birmingham, nice. UAB, and it was involved in cybersecurity, threat intelligence, big data analysis.
I saw you had a lot in this this data security thing.
I did. I've done a lot in cybersecurity, so that was a good business to me, and I was able to spin this company out. But we raised about $5 million for this company. And when I started the presentation, I thought to myself, not everybody knows everything about cybersecurity. They read about Target getting hacked or TJ Maxx or, someone stole my identity, blah, 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 blah. But they don't really know it, right? So how do I set up this problem? Well, the cool things about this technology was it could identify the source and the nature of where the hack came from.
Right.
Which is really tough stuff to do.
Oh, absolutely.
Really challenging. So, and if you know that, then you can know where it's coming from and you can stop it. Beautiful.
Yeah.
But, if you get into the technical details of we're doing an analytics and we can find the needle in the haystack and we got this piece of data, people tune out. So I started off talking about movies because movies have everything to do with cybersecurity, right? I started to put up pictures of movie bad guys.
There it is. I knew that's where you're headed.
Everywhere, every bad guy.
It's a mystery.
Bane and Godfather, and we even had Snidely Whiplash for those of us that were our, maybe more of our age. Anyway, so all these bad guys, and I say, what's great about movies? You kind of know who the bad guy is in most cases, or at least by the end of the movie, you know who the bad guy is. The problem with the internet is we really don't know who the bad guy is sometimes. So going back to your original question, storytelling works. Laying out the pitch in terms of problem, solution. And I think one of the other things that people forget is they lay out problem, solution, and then they go to how it works and then ask. They always forget the why is it different?
Yeah.
And why that difference matters, both to the customer as well as the investor, if you're pitching for money. Because the investor wants to know, is there some kind of special sauce that's protectable that only you have that can protect other people that they can't copy and de-risks this a little bit for us? The customer wants to know, is this the only place I can get that secret sauce? And you invented that secret sauce, so you guys must be really brainiacs.
Yeah.
And you guys can, you have big brains, so you can deliver all this stuff to us, right? So you may have other really cool secret sauce maybe coming up as well. Mm-hmm. So I think that's a big thing. And the last thing I would say to you is, because we're in this era of entrepreneurship is very mainstream now.
Yeah.
There's some great television programs, like Shark Tank.
Don't you say it. You did that just to mess with me.
I did. No, but I will tell you, I'm hooked on Planet of the Apps.
I still haven't checked it out yet. You told me to, but I haven't looked yet.
I am on episode 8 now.
Yeah.
But I think there's value in watching other people pitch all the time because you see what works and what doesn't work, right?
Yeah.
And you hear things that maybe you can adopt and steal and use and resonate. You also see where people get into trouble.
Oh God, yeah. Yeah, there are certain things that will just sink the ship no matter what you do.
Right. And watching this Planet of the Apps thing, they not only show you the couple, 2 or 3 winners in each episode, but they do a very quick little vignette of the people who pitched and didn't make it.
Oh, yeah.
And, all the ideas are great. They're really interesting. And you can tell people care about them. They're involved in them. But how they pitched them just didn't resonate.
Oh, it takes a lot more than an idea.
Oh.
Now, I'm curious to see if you can kind of back me up on something here, because I think you and I working together might be able to actually put a very valuable nugget out there. But I didn't want to say this before until I had somebody that I was really 100% confident could kind of back me up on it. If I'm wrong, go ahead and tell me. But I think one of the mistakes people make a lot of times is that they want the person doing the judging to be just like them and see the world like them and have the same value system. And I think that's a mistake to want and chase that, because what you really want is someone who is weak or strong where you are weak, right? And I think a lot of people get twisted up chasing the wrong audience, and they can't put their finger on it until 2, 3, 6 months, 5 years, some later point. It's like, oh, hell, I should have teamed up with somebody who was strong where I'm weak. You tell me what you think about that.
I couldn't agree with you more. I remember early in my career, I used to hire everyone that was kind of like me, a type A arm waver, right?
Right.
And it was great. I mean, it was nice because there was all these people that just like me. So of course, it was all good, right?
Hey, we're going to make a great team,
right? And then later on in life, I intentionally said, boy, was that young and stupid to think that way.
I did this too, yeah. Everybody I hired was just like me. Yeah. It was terrible.
It was terrible, right? I said the same thing. Now these people turned
if you want to have an argument, that's the formula.
Right. And I intentionally said, I want all of these different thinkers. So I intentionally would not hire people like me. I would, I want to make sure, of course, they were competent and capable and everything.
Yeah.
But I got this great group. And I will tell you to this day, 2 very successful groups of marketing professionals at very large software companies. And individually, the group that was the type A arm wavers, the mini Greg Coticchias, they went on and they had a lot of them became CEOs and presidents. They had great careers and everything. But I would give you that the second team, the diverse team, the team that was a competent team, that was the most powerful team I ever worked with.
Well, if you hire people that are all basically the same person, they're going to fight over who gets to do the task that's best suited to that personality, that mentality, right?
Yep.
I do like, though, the fact that you said the B team, the more diverse team, was a stronger team, because I think, without intending to, we really just made a good academic argument in favor of diversity.
Yes.
When that's not normally the way that develops. Normally people say, okay, now we're going to talk about diversity, and people sort of, they look at it from the back end of it. Somebody comes out of the blast furnace program. What do you want for them after that?
For me, there is a transformational educational goal that they are learning skills that they are not going to get anywhere else.
Which ones?
They're learning about themselves.
Yeah.
Right? And they're learning some of the things we just talked about. How to play nice on a team, how to play well in the sandbox together in a business setting. And you're smart and you have expertise and you're hardworking, and we've all got to figure this out together. And we don't have a lot of resources to make this happen.
The skills I like are taking accountability into your own personal vernacular, right? And I like the problem-solving aspect of it.
I would agree with both of those. And, look, you go out to work for any company in the world today, and you say that you've helped something go from idea to commercialization.
Yeah.
And you worked on a team. These kids at Blast Furnace, what's great about it, they're not getting paid. They're not getting course credits for this. We do have versions of them that, there's a fellowship now for a few teams.
There's some payoff,
and
maybe.
Some, we have an undergraduate version of it. But 95% of the people who have been through, of the 400 students have been through Blast Furnace. We've created, 36 companies out of this in 5 cohorts, which is just absolutely stunning.
Those are great numbers.
And we started this as a startup. Mark Melandro looked at me and he said, okay, so I really want you to fill this gap. I have no idea what a university accelerator looks like, so go find that out. And oh, by the way, you don't have any staff and no resources, no funding. Right. But good luck, go get them, Tiger. And, we figured it out. Now we have, close to 50 volunteers, people that are speakers, judges, mentors, coaches. We have EIRs that help us out, You have
a beautiful space.
We got a great space.
Plenty of resources available to you. This is the small snowball that got placed on top of the mountain, and now it's becoming a force, right?
there's kids I know that went to work for local startups and small businesses. One of the things we just recently did, Scott, is we did a survey of our first 5 cohorts, whoever had gone through the whole program through to demo day. And we asked them, what some of the things that changed, or the things that they thought that they would pursue or not pursue as a result. And we got about 80% that said that they would have not considered working for a startup or a small business, and now they either are or would as a result of their experience in blast furnace.
I'm going to say something horrible, but I believe it to be true. And I think it's that the people who will not change their mind on that may have a very hard future, because I think we are moving to small, sort of like atomized economy where like these ad hoc teams develop amongst all these different, consulting and 1099 kind of arrangements. We've got a duty as the older guard to say, we can see a little bit further down the road than you can. And there's a really good possibility that you're going to be part of this, one of the atoms in this economy where you're going to get mixed up into one molecule, and then that's going to be smashed. We've got to get that word out.
And people are they're cobblers, right?
Yeah.
They're cobbling together 3 or 4 different gigs. And I know many people, some of them, recovering entrepreneurs.
One of them sitting across the table from me.
Who cobble together stuff. Yeah, I'm a cobbler, right? I have my anchor tenant at the University of Pittsburgh Innovation Institute, and I teach and I consult and do all the other things. And, it's but that used to be thought of as unconventional.
Oh, yeah.
It's conventional.
I think it's getting there. I don't know.
I hope that people realize that you can, work for 3 or 4 different companies and advise and consult and do all these other things and bring it all together.
And design a lifestyle too, though. Like you get something out of it too. I don't want it to sound like you're shaking a cup out in front of 7-Eleven. You're allowed to have fun doing it. And that, honestly, I think is a necessary ingredient.
I can guarantee you, working for the University of Pittsburgh, I'm not doing this for the money.
Greg Coticchia, thanks for coming into the Pitchwerks podcast. It's been great having you in.
Thank you.
All right, that's it for this week. Thanks again for tuning in. Make sure to hit us up on the social media channels. Let us know what you think and what you're working on and how we can help you. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, there's a website out there. There's a LinkedIn company page. Always put the E in works and seek us out. And, maybe we can collaborate, work on something. You can tell us who you want on the show. Tell us what you're working on. Anything's good. We're going to spend the next 7 days putting the new show together, and we will catch you next Wednesday.
The Pitchwerks podcast comes to you from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, a production of the Epicast Network and MacTaggart, LLC. Engineering and production by Buzzy Torek and Nick Miller. For more information, show feedback, and ad sales, visit pitchwerks.com. pitchwerks.com. On social media, find and follow the show on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram using that same brand name, pitchwerks.